There was hot coffee still steaming on the fire, 24 cabins abandoned. The only person left, shivering and barefoot, whispered, "They heard the calling. I stayed behind." Content warning. This story explores themes including cults, psychological manipulation, mass disappearance, and survival in extreme environments. No explicit graphic violence is depicted, but true crime, loss, and trauma are involved. Viewer discretion advised. Imagine you're flying a small bush plane over the endless white expanse of Alaska's St. Elias National Park. Below, the land is stitched together from jagged blue glaciers, obsidian crevasses, and dark stands of pine. When the clouds part, you see not a road, not a town, just 1,000 miles of utter, wind-torn isolation. But on this morning in late March 2012, a telltale wisp of wood smoke rises from the trees near the old Copper River, miles from any marked trail. You circle low, radioing what you see: a cluster of cabins, smoke, but no movement. No vehicles, no dogs barking, not even boot prints in the snow. You don't know it yet, but you're witnessing the aftermath of one of the strangest modern disappearances in North America. The overnight vanishing of the Glacier Faith Family. A cult, some say, or a simple religious commune, depending who you ask, whose entire community simply melted away into the wilderness, leaving only rumors, cold beds, and a single traumatized survivor. The last supply flight was supposed to be just another routine run: rice, flour, canned goods. The bush pilot, Eric Moose Mosley, a gruff ex-infantryman, had landed on the frozen band of Lake Secu for the Glacier Faith Family for 2 winters running. He knew the group by reputation and sight. Blue parkas, home-sewn patches, always soft-spoken, clean as monks, was how Moose joked with the other pilots at the Chitina outpost. But this March, nobody waved him down. No 2x4s on their shoulders, no bearded faces grinning as he taxied the battered Cessna to the tree line. The cabins, 8 small, 2 larger, stood in eerie silence, doors slightly ajar, windows iced with frost. A coffee pot sizzled on the ash pan. Socks and boots were piled just inside the main hall. Beyond, the snows were powder smooth, undisturbed except for... Wait. Blues's boot found a set of prints, bare feet, toes bruising purple against the cold. As he yelled again, something moved behind the woodpile. A woman, maybe late 40s, hair hacked short, skin as pale as birch bark, stared at him with wide, blinking eyes. Her lips were cracked, bleeding, and she wore only a flannel shirt and threadbare jeans. On later recordings, her voice is thin as air.
"They heard the calling. I stayed behind."
Who was this woman? And what happened to the people she lived among? Over the next 48 hours, that question would seize national headlines, spark a statewide search and rescue operation, and ignite a swirl of speculation that grew weirder with each detail unearthed. Erica Mainland, born 1962, originally from Fairbanks, was the chronicler of the Glacier Faith Family. Her role, she would later explain to state police and FBI, was to copy down the teachings, maintain their ledgers, and, crucially, bear witness if anything extraordinary happened. Her rambling statements would seem at times poetic, at others detached, as if she were reciting someone else's dream.
When I woke, the bell was ringing, and the fire was dead. They went to the river or beyond. I don't remember if I saw faces, but something in the dark.
She was diagnosed with mild hypothermia and possible early frostbite, and treated in the small hospital at Glen Allen under police watch. Investigators tried repeatedly to clarify. Did the community leave together, under duress? Was anyone threatening them or planning to escape? She just shook her head.
They'd been preparing for a journey,
Erica explained.
but not a physical one. The elder called it the Big Passage. We wrote it down.
To understand what happened, step into the faded blue world of Glen Allen, Alaska, a junction of two highway ribbons at the edge of nowhere. It was here in 2003 that Peter Timms, a disillusioned former seminary student with a gift for finding meaning in frost and silence, attracted his first followers. Timms was from the lower 48, grew up in Indiana, and arrived in Alaska on a spiritual walkabout after a public breakdown in Chicago, triggered by a failed marriage and the death of his younger brother in Iraq. In Glen Allen, he gathered a handful of lost souls, recovering addicts, a burned-out teacher from Juneau, 3 siblings running from a bad foster system. His promise? Radical authenticity, a family embracing silence and nature, returning to the great cold as proof of faith. By 2007, Timms was the de facto leader, addressed only as elder, of a tight-knit, off-grid community that called itself first New Icarians, later the Glacier Faith Family. Their numbers grew to 27 at the peak, with children born on site. Their doctrine, preserved in Erica's journals, shunned violence and paranoid isolationism seen in more infamous cults. Instead, the faithful practiced a rigorous daily schedule, 5 a.m. scripture readings, alternating between the Book of Job, essays by John Muir, and Tim's own writings. Group labor, strict vegetarian meals, and, at sunset, long silent vigils at the banks of their private cleansing pool, an icy pond at the base of a glacier-fed rivulet.
Outsiders weren't welcome, but neither were they threatened. The family bartered woven goods, homemade candles, and rustic furniture at the Copper Center Market, trading with native Athabascan villagers, mail pilots, and the rare, intrepid tourist. But this insular peace hid growing rifts. Erica would tell investigators,
That last winter, the elder changed. He spoke of a cycle ending, of needing to shed our forms. There were dreams. The children heard them too.
In December 2011, local rangers and the state troopers received 2 ominous reports. A bear trapping guide claimed to have seen a bonfire the size of a teepee and chanting in a tongue I don't know, north of the main camp. A nurse at the Glen Allen Clinic, who occasionally treated family members for frostbite, noted strange bandages always on the forearms, and the children looking skinnier than usual. By February, snowpack had trapped the family almost entirely. Foot travel to supplies became impossible. Yet the group refused airlifts, writing to the rangers in sharp, formal letters, "We are of the mountain and await its will. Please do not intrude until the ice flowers break." Erica's own journal, later found in her cabin, bound in elk hide, details 2 weeks of mounting tension.
January 31st. Elder fasts. No fire since New Year's Eve. He says the flesh is a mask. February 9th. Sarah, a 9-year-old girl, has fever. We wrap her in blessed quilts. He marks our foreheads with ash. February 22nd. Elder says the voice will speak soon, at full moon. Skin itches. A sign.
All entries stop 4 days before the disappearance, except a single ripped page tucked in the back. If I am the last, let them know we did not suffer. The cold is not evil. Piecing together survivor testimony, cabin evidence, and an eerie lack of tracks or struggle, state investigators built a timeline. Evening, March 22nd, 2012. The family dined together in the main hall. A single lantern, dirty plates with boiled roots and beans. Their boots, heavy parkas, and mittens were left untouched. The group rarely ventured out at night due to wolves. Late night. Erica, already ill with mild fever, claims she went to her bunk early. She awoke hours later to the sound of the bell, a cracked cowbell Timms used to summon the group. She heard soft voices
and then the door closing, slowly, one after another.
When she finally rose, numb and shivering, the main hall was empty. The fire barely alive, food untouched, and the only footprints, bare, small, turning toward the edge of the trees, fading where the drift swallowed them. There were no bloodstains, no signs of violence. All firearms and hunting knives were still accounted for. The satellite phone, once used for emergencies, was smashed, battery scattered in the snow. The next 72 hours were a blizzard of activity. Alaska State troopers with avalanche-trained dogs, Forest Service rangers, and 2 FBI agents from Anchorage all converged on the abandoned camp. Drone-mounted thermal cameras swept the river, glacier, and forest. No bodies, no signs of campfires, not a trace. National headlines bloomed. Cult disappears in Alaskan wilderness. Did Glacier family walk to death? Leader's last rites recorded. For the first and only time, the public saw a snippet of Erica's shakily handwritten note.
The cold is not evil.
A massive search found nothing but some torn cloth snagged on Devil's Club thorns and a series of daisy-chain footprints near the frozen shallows. As investigators learned, each print was from a bare foot, not a boot or moccasin, and melted into nothing 200 yards from the edge of the river. One investigator, Trooper Daniel Lux, would later say to NPR,
"It's like they all just evaporated, rather than drowned or froze. Something spooked them, but not with violence. With what? Faith, fear, something else."
Imagine you're after the most unexplainable missing persons case in Alaskan history. Helicopters whir overhead, their blades churning up glitter whirls of icy powder. Dozens of rescue workers, faces scrubbed raw by the wind, pick through the remains of an abandoned camp. For every move they make, there seems to be 1,000 unanswerable questions. The official reports start with facts.
March 25, 2012. Air and ground teams swept a 5-mile radius around the cabins. No sign of life or death, and no indication that anyone left in vehicles or dog sleds. There are no snow machine tracks, no trails leading away, and only a fading sequence of bare footprints that stop at the Copper River's edge.
Erica Mainland, sole survivor, is quickly transferred from the hospital to a temporary safe house in Palmer, a town 3 hours south, for her own protection and recovery. Trooper Daniel Lux and FBI Special Agent Rachel Carson are assigned point on the case. Both have seen disappearances before, missing hikers, overdue trappers. But this is something new, a meticulously organized community gone without trace in a matter of hours. Erica's memory is incomplete, fragile as hoarfrost. She recounts, through sessions with a forensic psychologist, flickering bits of the last night. The bell, whispers, the cold settling in the lung. She is lucid about one thing.
Nobody forced us to stay. Elder Timms believed the ice would show us the way, but I chose to stay behind. I was afraid. Not of death, but of being wrong.
The search crews, and soon enough national journalists, meticulously combed the site. There are small clues suggesting an orderly but hurried departure. All personal effects, journals, hand-carved trinkets, children's toys left behind. Food stores, mostly dried beans, root vegetables, wild rice, untouched. One large handbell cracked. A sheaf of scripture, pages written in Peter Timms' tight cursive, some biblical, some original, containing passages about ice, silence, and a great return. A battered Polaroid camera, 3 photos inside, one of the entire group at sunset on the glacier, one of Elder Timms at the water's edge, and a final, underexposed shot of footprints in the snow. Nothing about these clues points to panic or violence, more like the community expected to return, or felt they wouldn't need their earthly possessions anymore. Within days, theories multiply online and in Anchorage newsrooms. Mass walkout. Could the Glacier Faith family have left for a new hidden location, staging their disappearance to evade attention or interference? Suicide pact. Echoes of Jonestown and Heaven's Gate echo in the national coverage, but there's no evidence. No poison, no planned graves. Nature's wrath.
Avalanche, thin ice, or predatory animals. Search teams find none of the usual signs. No collapsed roofs, no dragged clothing, and fish and wildlife experts debunk the idea that an entire group could vanish without bloody evidence. Spiritual ascension. Members online argue the family believed in spiritual transcendence. Did they set out deliberately into lethal conditions inspired by Elder Tim's teachings? Journalist Katie Moritsova, reporting for the Alaska Dispatch, writes,
"It's not just a physical absence, it's the erasure of a philosophy, a whole worldview in one glacial night. The cabins are frozen mausoleums, haunted by what they left behind."
A quiet war begins between those fixated on finding a logical explanation and those bewitching themselves and others with the possibility of something stranger. Erica's rescued scripture reveals cryptic clues.
The ice is not the end, but the beginning. The flesh is brittle clay, but the spirit is molten, seeking to escape the form.
Elder Tim's background becomes central to public fascination. Digging through old records, investigators and reporters discover Peter Timms attended seminary in Indiana, expelled following a period of mental health trouble, arrest in Chicago for disturbing the peace, delivered a sermon from a park bench, speaking in riddles about oneness with the cold, a fanatical but not violent doctrine, focused on embracing suffering as a spiritual test, a published essay, Beneath the Ice, All is Stillness, in a fringe journal in 2008, arguing that extremes of environment clear the soul of soft impurities. Former followers, tracked down by Anchorage News, report that he was charismatic but brittle, and that his teaching shifted darker, stranger, more apocalyptic in the year before the vanishing. Imagine searching for your family, only to find a poem and a pot of cooling coffee. What would be enough evidence? What truth would you need to finally give up hope? FBI agent Carson and Trooper Lux chase every lead. The forest. Search dogs lose the scent beyond the shore, where a snow bridge, now partially collapsed, crossed a slurry of glacial water, but there's no further trail. River ice. Searchers use sonar and cutting torches to probe the waters, finding only deep space and ancient stones. Aircraft. No unscheduled landings or pickups. Pilot logs confirm only Mosley's routine supply run. Locals. Athabascan elders are interviewed. Some share folk stories about hungry spirits in winter, but none link the legend to the family. Technology offers few helpful answers. Cell signals never reach this remote quadrant. The satellite phone, smashed, would have pinpointed any desperate call for help. But its damage is clean, like it was set down and struck with a mallet. In Palmer, Erica battles waves of shame, guilt, and grief. She barely eats, clinging to her journals and requesting to speak with a local Unitarian minister. Through glass, she tells the minister,
Elder promised we would be forever. When the shadows stretched across the snow, he said it was time. I told them I was too afraid. He smiled, like a father does, and said, "Then your duty is to watch and to tell the truth."
The state presses her for actionable details. Erica simply weeps, pained by the memory and the silence that followed. 8 days after the search began, a ranger patrolling 2 miles downstream from the cabins discovers something that nearly unravels the case. A child's woolen mitten floats near the edge of a frozen eddy, tangled with twigs and a scrap of parchment. On the parchment, a final, chilling fragment written in a different hand than Erica's.
When the water calls, we go. No need for fear. All is forgiven in the thaw.
Rescue divers probe the river repeatedly, but find nothing. No remains, no more evidence. The mitten is later identified as belonging to Sarah L., age 9, noted in Erica's journal as the youngest to see the white fox. For the first time, investigators consider that some in the group may have entered the river willingly, seeking, perhaps, a great passage prophesied by Timms in his writings. But the ice gives up no answers. The story goes viral. Cable news runs packages under lurid banners. Bloggers half a world away dissect every blurry Polaroid. Cult in the whiteout, one segment reads. Would you recognize your loved one's handwriting if it were their last words left behind in the snow? Relatives of the disappeared gather in Anchorage for a candlelight vigil, reading aloud from Erica's recovered journals and the family's hymnal. The mood is not one of rage, but of aching, unresolved loss. One father tells a camera.
They weren't zealots. My son just wanted a place to belong.
Forensic psychologists on national TV argue that group psychology and Tim's prophecies could explain the mass abandonment of safety, the willingness to walk barefoot into cold fate. Still, no one sleeps easy. The mystery deepens, with heartbreak at its center. Imagine you're one of the last state troopers still searching the Copper River Flats as April wanes and hard Alaskan winter starts to recede. You pause at dawn, where the sun washes the snow with blue gold light, as if something in the world is holding its breath. You're haunted by two ghosts. The certainty that dozens of people couldn't just disappear, and the sticky dread that whatever happened here might never be truly explained. On April 9th, searchers spot something glinting beneath a thin, new sheet of ice, not far from the original daisy chain of footprints. Using ice saws and ropes, they carefully fish out a handmade wooden box, sealed with wax and etched with the symbol the family drew on their candles, a stylized glacier, sun, and river. Inside the box, folded cloth, a series of handwritten letters, and a tape recorder. Tape evidence in missing persons and cult cases isn't rare, but what is found on it will become the centerpiece of both the legal fallout and collective anguish. FBI Special Agent Carson and Trooper Lux listen with silent, horrified attention. The tape begins with the voice of Peter Timms, impossibly calm and clear. Birds chirp distantly. The recording is almost certainly made at dusk, on the final day.
We have come to the edge of our passage. If you are hearing this, perhaps you will not understand. We follow the ice not to leave behind pain, but to break through to truth. We are not lost. We are not alone. The world is not what it seems beneath the surface of things.
He then recites, almost chant-like, several lines his followers would have instantly recognized.
Shed your forms, trust the calling, walk until the cold burns away the body's fear. Beyond the river the faithful are as one.
Several voices can be heard murmuring affirmations, including children's. There is no alarm in their tones, only conviction. Erica Mainland, the survivor, is not heard. The tape's official transcript becomes public record, studied by cult experts and trauma researchers worldwide for years to come. Forensic analysis reveals that the tape was made between 9:15 and 10 p.m., March 22nd, precisely when Erica claims to have been ill and asleep. A single set of footsteps, much smaller, depart from the cabins
half an hour after the group leaves. It matches Erica's size and stride. The implication: she truly chose to stay behind. Whether out of fear, doubt, or a final crisis of faith. Further, a review of recovered journals, both Erica's and those written communally by the Glacier Faith Family, suggests the disappearance was ritual but not necessarily intended as suicide. Passages detail ambitions for shedding the body, crossing to the next season where warmth returns. But nowhere is violence or explicit self-harm encouraged. The consensus among forensic psychiatrists is that Timms was skilled at coercive persuasion, a pattern seen in other cult cases, using ritual, isolation, repetitive teachings, and love bombing to gradually dismantle personal boundaries and instill total trust in the leader. Simultaneously, neither bodies nor direct evidence of self-destruction is ever found. A previously overlooked radio transmission picked up 2 hours before departure is reconstructed from static. It's a child's voice. "We are ready now. We'll be warm soon." The message is sent from the smashed emergency radio, meaning someone must have intentionally destroyed it just after transmission. Analysis never identifies the child for certain. Peter Timms's real identity now becomes a matter of public inquiry. While there was initial confusion, public records note multiple Peter Timms, including an Australian scientist and unrelated criminal cases, neither with direct link to Alaska's spiritual wanderer. The cult leader's true background is constructed through composite interviews. Disillusioned seminary student, known for viral charisma and poetic, at times cryptic, sermons. Previous minor run-ins with law enforcement for trespassing and disturbing the peace with public religious displays. No record of violence, no previous disappearances. Excerpts from followers' letters show how Timms provided a deep parental reassurance, especially for the lonely, displaced, and recovering. Many in the family had previously left behind abusive or fractured homes.
He told us not to fear pain or loss. He told us the family was eternal in the cold. He made the glacier feel like a friend.
Letter from a follower, 2010. By late April, the case is provisionally closed. One body, none. No closed in the hearts of those left behind. Alaska State Troopers file the result as unresolved group disappearance, presumption of death by misadventure or exposure. The FBI, after extensive review, declines to recommend criminal charges against Erica Mainland, citing her own vulnerability, lack of evidence connecting her to wrongdoing, and her extreme emotional and physical duress. She is released quietly, provided trauma support, and eventually relocates under a new name. The survivors' families split into warring camps. Some blame Erica, insisting she should have done more to call for help. Others direct anger at the authorities for not intervening sooner, despite the family's well-documented insistence on isolation and blockading outside aid. A smaller group, after reading the journals and hearing the tape, admit their loved ones had become lost to the family long before the night they walked away. The heartbreak of slow psychological separation. A press conference in Glen Allen features reporters pressing officials. Was this preventable? Why did the Alaska State Troopers respect their isolation so strictly? The response is tight-lipped and defensive. In Alaska, off-grid living isn't a crime, and we had no evidence to act as law enforcement until there was evidence of a crime. Across the country, media and true crime outlets draw comparisons to the most mysterious mass disappearances in history. Roanoke Colony, the Sodder children in West Virginia, various global cult vanishings. But unlike most infamous cases, there's no proven violence, no confession, no explanatory note or manifesto. Only a group's collective surrender to the ice,
and a survivor marked by ambiguity and regret. True crime podcasts and cable specials keep the case alive for years. Was it death by faith or a passage to freedom we can't understand? Nothing new is discovered. There is no closure. Erica Mainland grants a single trembling interview to the Anchorage Daily News years later.
I dreamed they found peace. I hope I'm wrong about everything. I hope I'm right about one thing. That fear didn't win in the end. I'm here because I couldn't let go.
She vanishes from public view, leaving only the journals as record. Her words become a touchpoint for anyone mourning a loved one lost but never recovered, whether by death, disappearance, or psychological enthrallment.